All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club Outer Rim. This time we're going to delve into Rings of Power Season 2, episodes 1 through 4. We're at the halfway point of the season right now, and we're just going to talk about our overall takeaways from how we feel about this season so far. We did a wrap up last year of Season 1, but we figured we'd at least cut this one in half and do a couple of episodes. No, just kidding. We're going to talk aliens. About
Yes.
episode 6 in a row of aliens. Now we're finally going to move away from aliens. Anyway, and I will go ahead and preface this by saying that Greedo is our Tolkien lore master. He's the one
Oh,
that
yeah.
he knows so much more about this than I do. I know the movies. I've read Lord of the Rings at least 2 to 3 times in full. Read The Hobbit multiple times, dating all the way back to middle school.
Yeah.
But I've never really gone beyond that much. All I really know is what I've a little bit of what I picked up here and there from Greedo and from Gundark as well, who
I'm no,
unfortunately
I
again
don't,
is in the spice mines and can't join us.
yeah, unfortunately, she would, yeah, because
Yeah,
but
yeah, this is right up her alley. So
yeah, but, yeah, I stopped just short of being the lore master with the rune tattoos
yeah,
the Elvish tree of life tattoo or the,
right,
that glows under moonlight or whatever.
exactly.
Have it
Uh,
tattooed in the small of your back. Speak, friend, and enter. In runes. It's like one
wow.
of those big mistakes people make with tattoos, not knowing what the runes mean.
Yes, yeah,
Like with
exactly.
kanji.
Oh, I love it.
But no, I know just enough to be dangerous. There's so much. Tolkien is so. I mean, just the pronunciations alone, just pronouncing his name correctly is. I don't even know if I'm doing that right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
Tolkien. It's
know. That's all.
Tolkien.
Is it
I
Tolkien?
I have no
Tolkien?
idea.
Tolkien?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
always preferred Tolkien, but I
I've
think it's
always said Tolkien.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
But or
Hmm.
Tolkien is
But I've heard a
something.
lot of Tolkien.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. But all I know is I love the guy. Even reading his biography and everything, it's like I always thought you get so sad when you get to his passing and everything. It's
Yeah.
like um, he's one of those guys that I feel like if people could donate years of their lives to a person, I would donate years of my life to him, just to keep on doing what he was doing. But to somehow, if he could have had more of a focus or more of a desire to present the Silmarillion in the way that people have taken it since his death,
Yeah.
because I don't know that he ever really intended for it to be published or anything,
Hmm.
but in the long run. But he was working on that from, I think, from everything I've seen, from when he was gassed in World War One and he was
Yeah.
recovering. He started having, which part of that might be the hallucinations from being
Right.
gassed on the battlefield, but
Right. That's
but
true.
um but yeah, so I mean and that was whatever World War One would have been, 1918 or something, 1917.
Yeah.
So talk about a long life, actual, life's work. And anyway, but we've got rings of power. We don't have
Yes. Give us the
Tolkien.
rings of power.
We got the rings of power instead. Uh.
So yeah, overall takeaways from the season so far. Have you enjoyed it or is it garbage to you? What do you think? What do you think so far?
If you're taking it purely as Tolkien, which I don't,
Hmm.
it's pretty trashy, and
Yeah,
I can't argue all the hate. I think it gets too much hate because
I agree.
I enjoy it. I've enjoyed it from the beginning, but it's a tough sell. It's like I'm enjoying it part of the time while I'm cringing. I'm kind of looking at it like peeking
Right,
through to
right.
see what they're going to do next. But the first season was full of shocks for me. Like, why did they choose to do this? The
Hmm.
second season is more just I think I said to you, it reminds me of a telenovela, Spanish soap opera or something
Right,
set in Middle
right.
Earth,
Yeah.
but without the romance
Yeah.
it's like there's no true passion, um, but it's just kind of the hand-wringing melodrama, and which I don't care for, but it's
Hmm.
pretty. There's some cool, I like shows and movies that take art and put it on the screen, and you can see where they got it from and everything. The Lord
Right.
of the Rings trilogy was amazing for that. They were smart enough to go hire Tolkien illustrators that were the most respected and best in the field.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I don't know anything about the production of this show,
Hmm.
but it's pretty, and so
Yeah, it does look great.
uh, this shows you. I don't know how to describe my hypocrisy on this. Why I
Hmm.
like this show, and yet I don't like it when they take Star Wars and give us mediocre stuff because this is. I can't defend it content wise as being anything more than mediocre. And
Hmm.
for Star Wars, for me, that's almost a kiss of death. Like I almost can't take it.
Yeah.
I can't. I just can't. Almost can't watch the mediocrity because it bothers me. This it bothered me at first, but we already have the towering Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
It's a separate thing for me. I was really crushed by The Hobbit.
Me too. Yeah. Didn't live up
And
to
that's where I had to sort
expectations.
of let it go and like
Hmm.
and sort of go like, okay, maybe the best is over as far as what we're ever gonna see from Tolkien
Hmm.
on for a while, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw as kids, we saw a Ralph Bakshi version, which I really liked
Yeah.
as a kid and as a
I
young
remember
person, and
that. Yeah, I
still will
remember
watch
watching
to this
that.
day. Um, but so it takes years and years for this stuff to develop and come out, especially with something unfilmable like Tolkien. Never liked the Bashki, not the Bashki, the Rankin Bass
Hmm.
cartoons very much.
Yeah.
Just they're so stylized and everything. Of course, so was Bashki, but in a different way.
Hmm.
Uh, so anyway, this is the version we have now after many years after the great trilogy,
Hmm.
and as they like to say in the show, it is but a pale shadow.
Yes.
It is a shadow and a thought in passing. But I enjoy it. What about you?
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I kind of disassociate myself from it being
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings to really get through it.
it's like a
Um,
traumatic experience where you
because again,
project
I'm
your
I'm
mind
not as
somewhere.
tied in. I'm not as tied into the lore as you are. Like I said, I know you can kind of dissect it. Like, well, why did this happen? And this happened back in this age, and all this.
Yeah,
Why
why
are they
did
putting
they
this here
choose
and
to put
changing this
this here?
character? See, to
Right.
me, that just goes right over my head,
Uh-huh.
because I just
Yeah.
don't know it. Even
I'm that
last
way
week,
with House of the Dragon because I've never read the
right?
story. So I have
Exactly.
no
Yeah.
idea
Only
I have
Gundark
zero
out of
idea
the
when they make changes, you
yeah
know?
out of the three of us, only Gundark has read House of the Dragon.
And
So
I prefer that show that way because I want to be spoiler free.
yeah.
Tolkien, I mean, and you got to think about Tolkien too. A lot of the people criticizing things, it changes stuff. Tolkien changed his stuff
Oh
all the
yeah.
time.
All the time.
Silmarillion it's like an amalgamation. And they don't, the thing that hampers this show the most, I think, besides, there's a lot of things, but one thing that they started off
Hmm.
just probably not being able to win is they only have the rights to the appendices
Yeah.
in Return of the King, at the end
Hmm.
of Return of the King,
Oh right.
which
Right.
is
Right.
like various notes, a compression of Middle Earth history by
Hmm.
age, but they don't have the rights to Silmarillion. So the greatest stories from pre Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
movies and stuff, the books, are in that first age, really,
Hmm.
where you want to spend $535 million or whatever during the season, whatever they did, I guess.
Right. Yeah. However many
Crazy,
billion
crazy
dollars it seems
money,
like. Yeah.
insanity. But I guess if you're Bezos, you can just flush it right down the Middle Earth
I
Tomorrow.
guess. Yeah.
But but those are the stories you want to throw that kind of money at just to make your definitive version. If you were a huge fan and you were going to spend all your money on it,
Hmm.
those are you want to tell Baron and Luthien, you want to tell
Yeah.
uh the story of the Noldor and how they got to Middle Earth. You want to tell the tale of Morgoth, who's
Yeah.
barely ever referenced in
That's why I'm
any of the
surprised
stuff we
we
see.
didn't get more of that. I would kind of like to see more of that.
Well, if you want epic,
Hmm.
that is where all the epic is. It's like all the myths that are referred to. As an example, on Weathertop,
Hmm.
when Aragorn is kind of humming the tune and telling the story, and the hobbits are all realizing this guy is more than just a bum in the woods or whatever.
Right.
That's the lay of Beren and Luthien that he's
Hmm.
referring to there. He's talking about how she danced in the moonlight or whatever when Beren saw her the first time, and
Yeah.
he's referring to his own love story with Arwen as well. And that's how
Hmm.
deep Tolkien goes back. It's like everybody. It's these like I said at the beginning of the movie. What did they say? Like memory becomes tales, tales become myths or legends, and fade
Right.
into,
Right.
and then and those all who lived and to remember are now gone.
Hmm.
That's how deep it goes back.
Yeah.
And this show is also trying to take events that in the Silmarillion and in the ages that Tolkien's writing a history, he doesn't care about the drama so much.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to take drama out of hundreds and possibly thousands of years of events and putting it, it's kind of like, Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, it felt like a long weekend. Like, remember the weekend we all became
Right.
Jedi and,
Yeah, it really did. It
and
was
defeated the Empire?
pretty much took place
Yeah,
over a 72-hour period. Yeah.
right. This is sort of like hundreds of years of development of not just characters, but the entire environment,
Hmm.
everything, and putting it into a few months,
Yeah.
and claiming that it happened, that somehow Numenor's fall happened at the same time
Right.
as the Rings of Power has happened at the same time. These characters did not coexist together. Most of them,
Yeah.
the
I
elves
mean,
did because they're long lived, but they were not different ones were not involved in the stories directly all at the same time most of the time.
yeah. Well, that's the
Tons of time
inherent
passed.
problem. That's the inherent problem with trying to adapt material
Yeah.
like that, because it's really hard, I've noticed, in cinema to really put across the passage of time,
No,
and
you can't.
not only to the fact that, like you said, that these people wouldn't even coexist, these characters wouldn't coexist because they lived hundreds of years apart. But even, like in Lord of the Rings, you and I were texting about this the other day, about how in, Fellowship of the Ring, when, Gandalf goes to Frodo and says, take this ring and keep it safe. I'll,
Right.
don't do anything until I come back. In the movie, it looks like he's gone for a couple of days and comes back. In reality, in the books, it was like 15 years or something like that he's
Right.
gone. But in the movie,
They just carried on their normal
they
business.
didn't really, yeah, life got totally back to normal to where Frodo had, almost forgotten about it. By the
Right.
time Gandalf got back, he's like, "Oh, where is that thing again?" And he's like
You mean
looking
that
for it.
silly old ring and
Yeah,
that whole business?
yeah. So yeah, like in the movies, of course, it looks like he was gone for a weekend and came back. He left on
Hmm.
Friday and came back on Monday.
No, Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, another thing that makes it unfilmable it does not follow the conventions of any kind of storytelling other
Right.
than myth.
Hmm.
And then the languages are really what it's all about, and then just the tall tales and the references to them. Um, yeah, it's not, and the nature, it's a love
Yeah.
of nature. It's nature versus
Industry.
man's
Yeah.
desire to advance,
Hmm.
and
Well,
at the
that's
cost
what it
of the
was, the whole
natural
World War
world.
One thing that got into his head when he saw the devastation of machines and tanks and those kind of things,
Yeah,
how
we
they
have
destroyed
no
the land
idea.
side, the landscapes and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where that origin came from what I understand.
Yeah, we think of atomic weapons as the dawn of the annihilation of mankind's
Yeah,
ability to
no.
annihilate itself. But at World
Hmm.
War One, they saw it firsthand, the ruthlessness of inhumane biological chemical weapons, just unleashed with no rules, and no thought for the life of the soldiers or anything. And it was just a living hell. So
Hmm.
many people died, and so many people died off the battlefield from illnesses, from
Oh yeah.
if you were wounded, or I mean, we don't need to go into all that, but that's why I think it's funny. I've seen people people on message boards and things criticizing Tolkien's depiction of war in The Lord of the Rings as being too romanticized and stuff. It's like maybe, but he was there,
He was there, and most
Yeah.
of you probably were
Um,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen specifically people criticizing the Ride of the Rohirrim, where they said the battle, the love of battle fell on the riders, and they began to sing as they slew, and they're
Hmm.
like, that is so stupid and unrealistic. It's like, well, maybe that's how Tolkien wished it had been, or
Yeah.
maybe he knew the brotherhood
Hmm.
that comes when you're riding, when you're charging your death, and the people around you are going to die, and
Yeah.
you're going to die, and you still have a job to do, and you have to believe in something,
Hmm.
you have to believe in each other or whatever. Um, so I give Tolkien a lot of leeway on a lot of things because but anyway, let's get back to the show. The
Yeah.
first season, I think I had more problems with it than this season.
Yeah.
I'm liking this season better so far.
I am too. I enjoy the pacing of the
Seems more
stories.
focused. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It seems a little bit more focused, and I like kind of where it's going right now. And
They're
now
and
that
they're also every week they're featuring a monster or two,
right.
which is fun,
Hmm.
Um, still doesn't explain all the money. Where's all the money going, Carillion?
Yeah, I don't know.
These
That's what I'm
days on
that's what I'm
everything.
wondering too, because I get the hefty price tag and it looks good, but I don't see that it looks as good as the money that was spent. especially I don't know. That shit, yeah, it's hard to
Nothing looks that
justify.
good.
It's hard to justify that kind of money for a TV series, basically. And I know
I
streaming
can
age is different than TV show, but it's just, I
we're
don't know.
we're we're old and we can sit here and say old people things like get off my lawn, but I remember the the first in my mind really huge baseball contracts and
Yeah.
going like what the hell is
Oh, I
going on,
remember.
are you
Yeah.
for real, and just realizing this is the way it is now,
Hmm.
and then I remember we went to the theater to see all these blockbusters that built upon each other. Star
Right.
Wars was 10 or 11 million dollars. Then you had Jaws before that, you had Close Encounters, you had
Hmm.
ET, and then at some point you start hearing this movie cost 80 million to make.
Oh
This
yeah.
movie cost 100 million to make. And we're like 100
a
million.
hundred
And
million?
it's like,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
make that back? And there were blockbusters our whole
Hmm.
life,
Oh yeah.
so they were making it back at first to the 80s and stuff. But pretty soon, by the time you got James Cameron, like True Lies and movies like that,
Hmm.
it's like 180 million or something. And
Yeah.
um, it just I still remember being stunned by that, but I can't imagine the just crazy like $1 billion show or whatever
Right.
is insane to me, and especially when you're paying that for the appendices. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
That's.
what so this show we like it, but
Hmm.
we're not sitting here trying to say it's the greatest thing. And the news is coming out today and recently that the viewership is way down.
Way
like
down.
like
Yeah.
no one is watching this.
Right.
And so more people are watching Amazon on their ring cam for their deliveries, and way by far than there are
Yeah.
people
I haven't
watching
seen the numbers.
Amazon
Have
for
you
the
have you seen the
Rings of
numbers?
Power. Uh, I saw something crazy like 900,000 homes for the premiere.
Ooh, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
it
goodness. I mean, even something like
down.
The Acolyte had like 4 million or
Yeah, and
something.
I
That's
heard I could be getting these wrong, but the
yeah.
gist is the same. I heard like 37% of the people who started the show last year didn't finish it.
Hmm.
And
And
this
clearly didn't
year,
return.
yeah,
Yeah.
this year people from the premiere even to now
Hmm.
has plummeted. So
Wow.
people aren't into it. They aren't tuning in to see it. Uh, I don't know if the better strategy is to release everything at once like Netflix does.
Hmm.
But personally, I prefer a weekly show
I
to
do
look
too. I
forward
still like
to
that.
have something to
I still like
watch,
that rhythm of, oh, Thursday night
Yeah.
we get a new episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you buy all the South Korean shows and you're gonna show them all, sure, put out a
Yeah.
bunch
Just put them
all
out.
at
Yeah.
once so we can watch them. But if you have a
Right.
flagship tentpole show like this was
Hmm.
supposed to be, Um, do we want to, I mean, how far do we want to go into this rabbit hole of why this show is criticized? I mean, we know it's kind of obvious. Like
Hmm.
I said, a blind man can see the diversity in the show, right?
Sure.
It's
I
written
mean,
in
and
Braille.
honestly, as much as I'll wave a flag for forced diversity against forced diversity, it
You're not
hasn't.
really a flag waver, though. Come on.
No, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
not.
you have
I'm
your
not.
opinions and stuff, but you're not a flag
Yeah,
waver.
no, but I do notice it when it happens,
Yeah.
and I just don't care for it. But for this show, I recognize that it's happening, but it just doesn't seem to bother me. I don't know. It's just not something that
I just think it's
bothers me about this show at
silliness.
all.
We're already playing dress up elves with
Yeah,
wigs and
I mean, that's the
ears.
thing.
But it becomes like this last episode 4, they had
Hmm.
the elvish away team or whatever you want to call it. Like I said,
Yeah,
yeah, they look like they're straight off a Star Trek bridge. I
they
mean, that
did.
was, and it's
This is the
just,
landing crew.
yeah, yeah, and it becomes an interesting discussion
Mm.
because uh, you buy Tolkien, the rights to Tolkien, and that is not Tolkien.
And you just change it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just change it. So what are you doing? There's such a fine line when you take a masterpiece and say, "Oh, there's deficiencies here. Let's improve
Hmm.
it." Now I get you're doing an adaptation. It's visual, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
and
yeah.
you want to show people what you want to show. So I give you the benefit of the doubt on doing that if that's what you want to do. But again, where was that attention to detail on the scripts and the
Hmm.
story and on
Hmm.
picking arcs and how to keep us glued to the TV set week after week?
Yeah.
Um, it's
Yeah, I know.
it's So that's when it becomes a problem. When you have a great
Yeah.
product, I mean, you can adapt it to a stage show for sixth graders and
Yeah.
people will love it. You know what I mean?
If it's
It
quality,
doesn't
yeah.
matter who does it. Yeah,
Right.
it's
Absolutely. Yeah. Like
uh
I said all along, I've never had a problem with who they cast in what role. Just make it a good show and
no.
I'll watch it, and
And
I'll enjoy
I
it.
think a huge like the symbol of all that is Galadriel for me in this
Hmm.
show. Like the conflict between what we're desiring to get done with the character as to what the
Hmm.
character actually you're adapting it from and
Yeah.
what Tolkien envisioned her to be. The character is unrecognizable for me,
Absolutely.
as
Yeah,
a
I agree.
Tolkien lifelong
I
fan.
keep forgetting that it's
Almost,
Galadriel. I keep,
yeah. No,
because
it
it's
shouldn't have
so
been her.
completely different
Yeah,
from the KK Blanchett portrayal, in the
yeah,
trilogy.
yeah. They really should have just gone a different. Like we always say, just create your own character. There's tons and tons of history here, and stuff that may not have been written down, and unsung heroes and everything. Just create your own characters. But I won't say she's totally unrecognizable because the character in the first stage in the Silmarillion has more of the characteristics of Galadriel in the show. A couple.
Hmm.
She's not totally like her, but if you could say
Yeah.
that anywhere in the history that she would be like that, it would be then.
Hmm.
Even down to the fact that she was a she was persuaded by Feanor, or Feanor, however you want to pronounce it. He
Hmm.
was the most powerful figure of the elves in the first age, and one of the most powerful figures to ever live. And he had an incredible charisma, but he also was as close to being a Dark Lord for the elves as they ever had, because
Yeah.
he was consumed by pride as well.
Hmm.
Um, he was like one of those crazy artists who's on a different level and does not care about the consequences as long as his vision is being pursued. And he was so powerful that most of the Noldor followed him, and Galadriel was one of those who
Hmm.
followed him. But in this show, they even have on her armor his symbol,
Hmm.
Fëanor symbol. Well, at this point in the Second Age, she wouldn't be wearing that.
She would be wearing
Be
it, right?
no,
From what I understand from what you told me, that's totally out
no,
of
he led
place.
them
Yeah.
into folly, basically,
Okay.
and into a long history of sorrow where you see the melancholy of the character portrayed in the Peter Jackson movies. This
Hmm.
is where the melancholy comes from, is from being young and bold and powerful
Hmm.
and failing, horribly,
Hmm.
losing family, losing, just the long, having a long life of just seeing things eventually go wrong, over the
Hmm.
whole span of all these years. And even though you're powerful and you're connected to nature and everything like that,
Hmm.
the thing of the sadness of the elves is they're on the wane by the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
They're on their
Yeah,
way
they're
out.
already on their way out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like they've had enough,
Hmm.
because of everything they've witnessed. And so her just having the vinegar and the bile and whatever she's displaying in
Yeah.
the show doesn't make sense to me. Now, it's their choice, but if she's, it's an ensemble cast, but to me, she's the main character of the show.
I think so too. Yeah,
They
I
She
get
gets
that
the most
feeling as
screen
well.
time.
Right.
Yeah. Her story has got the main bad guy in it most of the time. They're set up
Hmm.
as against each other directly.
Yeah.
She's the one warning everybody and able to see the threat. So, um, and why to all these days, why do they make their protagonist so unlikable?
I don't know. Yeah. That doesn't make sense to me because she is, like you were saying, I know you've said it and I agree that she just comes off as the most arrogant, icy cold, distant,
Hmm.
character. What is there to like? I don't
And
get
she
it.
doesn't even have hobbits to soften her.
Right.
Like some of the like Gandalf has or whatever. Like she
Hmm.
doesn't have anybody to show her protective side.
Yeah.
She's just constantly battling everyone.
Hmm.
And that's another thing about this show that I think I told you that sticks in my mind is they decided to go the route of we have to have drama every week from somewhere, which
Hmm.
means in all the factions, everyone is almost opposed to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't, if there's any decisions to be made, there's going to be three people saying, nope, that's wrong. And there's going to be the one person who's probably going to born out to be right, who's saying, nope, you're wrong.
Hmm.
And there's going to be conflict over it. So they can't agree on anything. So it makes the elves who are supposed to be wise look really immature
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
and out of control and kind of buffoons sometimes,
Yeah.
and they overreact. Elrond jumping off the waterfall was just hilarious. I was bust out laughing.
Yeah.
At least he did something finally, but
Right.
but that was just
Uh,
so silly and it had no consequences either.
no.
It meant nothing. It was just they had
Hmm.
a waterfall there. They said someday before the show gets canceled, somebody's jumping off this motherfucker. It seems like our day has come. It's Elrond. It's today.
Uh-huh.
And then when you have like the High King of the Elves, who really takes it in this show. I mean,
Yeah.
they really make him not very admirable. And when you hand him the three Elvish rings of power, like we see in the prologue of
He
the
just
Bashki
fumbles them
film,
on
the
the
prologue of
ground.
the,
Yeah.
and as soon as he takes them, somebody sneezes and he's like, "What?" And,
Yeah,
and the rings
exactly.
of power
Huh?
just go scattering on the ground. And everybody just sits there watching ding, ding, ding down the stairs. I really expected the sewer drain, ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding,
Tick,
down
tick,
and
tick, tick,
oh,
tick,
oh,
tick,
oh,
bloop.
oh, oh. And it's like I told you, it's like
Uh,
they need a spin-off Middle Earth pawn shop
yeah.
because you got a broken sword. I got 10 of them right here.
Middle Earth
You want
Pawn. I love
shards?
it.
I got all kinds of shards. I got this Silmaril here. One of only three ever made. No, mate, it's fake.
No, no, mate, it's fake.
I'll give you 10 silver pieces for that. Meanwhile, it's
That's
the real Silmaril.
that's a shot and nozzle, isn't it?
And
That's a
that's
shot and nozzle.
that come with a finger with a ring by any chance? Did that come with a stabby stabby crown? The crown of pain? Um, but no, the bad guys have Adar, the orc father guy, who comes from one paragraph in Silmarillion where it implies that Morgoth tortured
Mhm.
uh elven prisoners that he had, and it's supposed to be one of the darkest deeds he ever did because Morgoth is basically Lucifer,
Yeah.
and Eru, the father of the gods and Iluvatar,
Hmm.
everybody has multiple names in Tolkien because all the
Hmm.
cultures have names for everybody. Um, he's God, and
Hmm. Okay.
Melkor or Morgoth, he's got at least two names.
Hmm.
I think it was Fëanor that named him Morgoth. This is
Hmm.
how powerful Fëanor was. He said, "I name you Morgoth," and everybody took that as the
Said, yeah,
name from
that's
then
it
on.
then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like he's powerful at branding. He's like the
He's a
ultimate
great
advertiser.
marketing guy.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what so Morgoth his deal is he is powerful, but he cannot create his own thing necessarily.
Hmm.
He can warp and twist, just like Lucifer's envious of God's ability to create
Hmm.
and wants that, but ultimately can only destroy and warp and twist whatever God's created. Melkor is the same way, and so,
Hmm.
but that thing is that's from a paragraph, and Tolkien rewrote that at different points to
Oh,
where
okay.
the orc's origin was different. He didn't know. I don't think when he died anymore whether he intended to have the orc's origin be linked to this whole huge storyline they have in this
Hmm.
now. So again, I always kind of thought that was cool, but I don't know what Tolkien's intentions were there.
Yeah.
I give them benefit of the doubt again, but to have a guy who's like kind of a scarred elf and say that somehow he procreated into these orcs or something. He's the
Yeah,
father
I don't know.
is bizarre, and I
Yeah.
like the guy playing him.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the idea of a dark anti-hero.
Hmm.
But that's it's factions again. You got Adar versus Sauron. You got Elrond versus Galadriel. Galad versus whoever at any given moment.
Hmm.
You got the Durin and I forget his son's name. Um, and the dwarves are
Yeah,
against each
yeah.
other and
I
his
can't think of his
wife.
name either. Yeah.
Yeah, the hobbits were constantly in conflict over their traditions and stuff, and with Gandalf, the Ishtar, whatever he's supposed to be. Now you've got a dark wizard who, you know, everybody's staring at each other with murder in their eyes with the dark wizard's court. So it's like it's just a matter of time till there's so nobody can agree on anything.
Hmm.
And Sauron's one of his main abilities is his will. It's the same with
Right.
Morgoth. He learned from Morgoth. His will is the strongest
Hmm.
there is, period. And if
Because he
you are
was one of
evil,
Morgoth's henchmen. Yes.
yes, and he was basically like a fallen angel.
Hmm.
So he's a mini Lucifer. He'd be like a Michael or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Gideon, one of the I don't know the all the
The
like
fallen angels and stuff.
fallen
Yeah. Yeah.
angels
No,
and
I
stuff,
know what you mean
but he
though.
would
Yeah.
be basically like
Hmm.
the Lucifer's lieutenant or something. And so he's way more powerful than a Balrog. You know how even Gandalf struggled with the
Hmm.
Balrog.
Yeah.
Um, he's master of these kind of creatures, and his will is so powerful that he can summon them, he can imbue them with desire to fight, uh, and they can't resist. If you're
Hmm.
evil, you're going to flock to his banner, or you're going to be broken down eventually. Look at what happened to Denethor by
Yeah.
looking at the Palantir. Look what happened to
Right.
Saruman by looking at the Palantir being
Hmm.
exposed to Sauron's will. So in this show, Sauron is basically going through a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
He's like, do I want the apartment on on Numenor on the island,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to be a blacksmith, or do I want to go back and get my evil castle in a volcano? Do I want to hang out with the elves and create some rings?
Yeah.
He's all over the place,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
so
Well, I wanted to get your take on this. Something that just kind of bothered me about episode three was, and I know you agree with this part. Can we not just have something that's evil for the sake of evil? Do
right.
we have to like,
You talking about the orcs?
yes. I mean, if there's anything that personifies evil, it's orcs,
Right,
in the Lord of the Rings and in
right.
Tolkien.
They refer to each
And
other
now
as
all of a
maggots.
sudden we have to feel sorry for them because they have
Right.
families and they have little baby orcs and look how cute
Hmm.
he is. And do we have to go to
Yeah.
war, Master? Do we have to go to war again? Like, that's not an orc to me. I mean,
No.
what's your take on that?
Uh, okay. It's sort of like with this whole show. I'm of two minds on it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how orcs are created.
Hmm.
Even all the stuff I've read and everything. There's what we see. I think the lasting image for most people is Christopher Lee pulling the Urukai out
The
of
Uruk-hai, yeah, but
the
the Uruk-hai are
vats or
different from
whatever.
orcs. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
well, they are orcs,
I mean, they are
but
orcs, but they're like a whole different breed, you know.
yes, and this is where we get into a murky area
Uh-huh.
because um, there's a lot of stuff I could go into here, but when people criticize Tolkien,
Hmm.
they criticize it, and then when the show's trying to change things, I don't think you can change it, Tolkien.
Hmm.
You have to accept it as mythological
Yeah.
and a product of its time. He has a lot of references in his work to breeding and eugenics
Hmm.
and Beowulf and tales like this and different folk tales from different regions are inherently racial because and inherently sometimes racist
Hmm.
or culturalist or biased or whatever you want to say. They're all going to have a bias because
Yeah.
they
Well, they're a
come from
product of the time
regions.
when they were created.
Absolutely, and a lot of
Hmm.
them come from tribal things, from and they're cultural, and
Hmm.
they're either and their tales saying, why is our culture good? Why is our culture bad? Who is the enemy?
Hmm.
Do we believe there was monsters, or do we believe that as human beings we demonize the enemy?
Hmm.
And so but in Tolkien in Middle Earth, if you're going to take it as a literal real place, which you have to
Hmm.
do an adaptation, then yeah, the orcs are a force of evil.
Yeah.
They do have their own culture. I didn't take a huge offense like the whole internet seems to on that,
Hmm.
but I think it was probably a mistake to go that far. Um, because of the reaction. It wasn't a
Hmm.
popular decision. There was really
Yeah.
no need. And you're right. We need evil for evil's sake. And we're trying to humanize this guy, Edar,
Yeah.
while at the same time, he's just ruthlessly committing a war of attrition and
Hmm.
genocide whenever he feels like it.
Yeah.
Um, so it is compelling to justify our villains and have them be fighting for something that you could almost believe in, and like
Hmm.
say, hey, they're in a way they're right. So all that's fine. And if you were the orcs and you're basically orcs are slaves.
Hmm.
I'm not referring to race. I'm just because slavery is a universal concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are
Affects all
minions.
races.
Yeah, they hate their masters while at the same time they grovel and worship them.
Right.
So they're the cult that would sacrifice children,
Hmm.
to a god that wants to devour souls. It's malice.
Hmm.
Malice drives them. A malicious will drives them, and
Yeah.
they're expendable. They're evil always creates more. So yeah, I don't. I think they're biting off way more than they could
Hmm.
chew at this point.
Yeah.
But also, we're so far afield from anything that we should be that I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. No,
like
I
I
know.
didn't
I
think it
know.
was heinous, but I know a lot
I
of
didn't
people
think, and
did.
honest, I know I just kind of like
But how
exploded
many
there, but
times am
what I
I
mean,
just
I
gonna
just think
get
that was ridiculous. To
it?
me, it just
Yeah,
feels like such a modern thing in
it
cinema
is.
anymore is just to humanize everything, and everything is just, oh, it's okay. It's just got mental problems. And it's like,
Right.
oh, if we get it the right help, no one will be evil and everybody will be happy and we can all sing Kumbaya, you know?
Uh-huh.
It's like, well, I don't really want that in my
No.
entertainment, you know? It's
And
like,
and when I was talking about breeding and stuff, like Saruman,
hmm.
from what I remember of the books and everything, there's implications that the Urukai may have had men traits
Uh-huh.
because orcs, being a product of what they were, could not tolerate the sun.
Right.
So that's why Morgoth and Sauron always coincided their big offensives with blotting out the light of the
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah.
They use a volcano or whatever
Hmm.
and all their magic to send out huge dark clouds, ash, whatever, cover
Hmm.
the sun for days, months, and that let the orcs run around in the day as if it was night.
Right.
Saruman was smart enough to somehow experiment and um,
Create an
yeah,
orc
and
that
the
didn't need to
and
be
yeah,
covered. Yeah,
right, and they
exactly.
were like, "We're." That's what Aragorn confronts them at Helm's Deep in the book to find out what they. He's like trying to talk to them over the wall,
Hmm.
like he's like, "You guys better leave while you can." Somebody might be coming that will surprise you. There's, oh,
Hmm.
mankind's resilient, and they're like, "You don't know us. We're the Uruk-hai. We walk in the daylight.
Yeah, we're not normal orcs.
We
Yeah.
eat you guys.
Yeah.
And we don't care about your traditions and stuff." So, and they shoot some arrows at him and stuff.
Hmm.
And so anyway, there's always implications of weird, awful, crossbreeding, eugenics, things like that are, but always on the evil side,
Hmm.
always on the evil side. Um, so anyway, yeah, that was destined to
It
be a
caught
huge
me off
meme.
guard. I didn't know what they were doing with that.
No,
Um,
I think you're right there on the pulse of
yeah, I think
everyone.
I am.
I think I just kind of like, um, when Galadriel's not on the screen, I'm
Hmm.
just so much more happier with whatever they're doing.
Right.
She's
Yeah.
just eating too much of the show. And uh please don't take that as a criticism of the actress, because
Not at all.
I
No.
actually like her. She's pretty. She could pass as Galadriel. She does a good job
Yeah.
of showing to me
Hmm.
a lot of different range of the character, but they just don't want to give that character a break. It's like this
Right.
last episode,
Yeah.
they decided to make her hateful again.
Hmm.
I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? What's the
Why are
point?
we doing
Why are
this
we supposed to
again?
like her if all she
Yeah,
is like
she
that?
because she
You
came
know?
to Elrond at one point. And she said, "Take it from a friend who's failed a lot lately," and she has.
Hmm.
In the show, she lost the whole first season to evil. She
Hmm.
led everybody to their doom, basically,
Yeah.
and she's still cocky as hell.
Yeah.
Like, let me at him, let me at
Yeah. And
him,
I'm the only one that can do this. Yeah.
right? It's like that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want
Yeah.
to follow that character
No.
because she seems like she's totally out for herself.
Yeah.
Then that's Feanor. That's not Fingon,
Hmm.
her brother, or Finrod.
Hmm.
Finrod, her brother, who's started her whole quest in the show, and that's a whole another thing. That's where they lost me is right at the beginning.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of taking it as a fantasy show that
Yeah.
is like a high school play of
So
Tolkien ideas.
one last topic to talk about before we wrap up. What do you think about the portrayal of Gandalf? And now, of course, we've got Tom Bombadil's introduction in episode 4. How do you feel like that's going?
um, I actually like Gandalf okay.
Yeah, I
I
do
like the
too. I
actor
do too.
playing him.
Yep.
I
I
was
think he's doing a good
intrigued by the
job.
mystery of who he was supposed to be, even though I knew it wasn't going to be consistent with anything.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of just accepted if I'm going to watch this, I just have to let go in the within the context of the show. It doesn't affect my love of the originals or anything.
Sure.
But that's not Tom Bombadil any more than
No,
any of these
no.
other characters are. But it's I think
But
it's a
who
decent
cares?
use of the
It works
character
in the
so
show,
far.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's basically another unfilmable character because he breaks out into song all the
Yes.
time,
Yes.
I mean, these characters do that in the show, but
Hmm.
and that's another thing that they can defend and say, yeah, song is incredibly important in Tolkien, and it is, but
Hmm.
you just have to do everything well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but I don't know. I kind of have a fondness for some of these characters and stuff. I
Sure.
really couldn't stand the hobbits in the first season, and I think they're okay this season.
Yeah, they're better this season. I've gotten used
Yeah,
to them or something. But yeah, they did kind of bother me first season. This season, I'm like, I'm okay with them. You know, they really don't
and
bother me.
one of the biggest like I think tuning out moments was when it was revealed that he was Gandalf in the first season.
Hmm.
I actually liked that moment because there's still enough of me that any version of Gandalf, and I still want to, when I see a heroic fiction, I want to believe in heroes.
Hmm.
I'm tired of the anti-heroes,
Yes. Yeah.
at least the ones that shouldn't be, we
Right.
need heroes too.
Not just making an anti-hero just for the sake of
Right.
being an anti-hero. Yeah.
And when they're adapting this stuff and they're going so far afield, I know a lot of people made fun of it, but when Gandalf said, "I'm good,"
Hmm.
and revealed all the light came out of him and stuff, I was like, thank God,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of people just cringed and couldn't get over it, but
Hmm.
I loved that moment, and that made me like the character, and I
Hmm.
like the fact that he's uncertain, and
Yeah.
like I said, you're taking hundreds and hundreds of years of history. Like Sauron was all the things they have in the show at some point
Hmm.
over millennia.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't in a week and a half.
Right. Like they're portraying it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So much time can pass in the history of Middle Earth that he can come back and convince everyone, yeah, I did serve Morgoth, but now I'm reformed and I
Hmm.
have all this awesome stuff I can give you. And look, there's no taint of evil in any of it
Right.
because and people believed him
Hmm.
because so much time had passed and people are uncertain. Um, but anyway, it's impossible to do what they bit off on this stuff.
Yeah, of
And
course. Yeah.
that doesn't give them an excuse. I'm a hypocrite
Hmm.
because I'm very critical of the Star Wars content. I just say, look, you got to make it good first. You got to make it good first. This is not by any measuring stick good,
Yeah.
but I give it a pass for some reason. So,
So
but
speaking of that, let's go ahead and rate not individual episodes, but the season so far.
oh,
What
geez.
would you give it so far? I'm gonna go with a I'll go first. I'm gonna say it's about a 7 for me.
Yeah,
For all the reasons we talked about, you know, taking it out of context from Tolkien
right.
and and not getting into the details of what they've changed, just watching it for what it is, I like it around a 7.
I give it like a 5.5
Okay.
because five is still average. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? But when you get down there, your entertainment, you want it higher.
Yeah.
So if I really wanted to criticize, I'd give it a 3.5 or something. I still look forward to watching it.
Yeah.
And this season, like I said, has been less cringy to me for some reason. I just kind of laugh off because I'm expecting the stupid moments like Elrond jumping the waterfall and,
Yeah.
and the rings just being dropped on the ground, and then the three rings. But
Oh, whoops.
oh,
Wait,
look, did
wait.
you see where that one went? It's and then they got out their metal detectors and were looking for the three rings of power in the weeds. But and there's little tips of the cap that I enjoy. Like Sauron was a master of wolves, and he was a
Hmm.
werewolves too,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he could appear. He could take on the form of a wolf, a werewolf, a bat, a vampire, all this gothic stuff that is really cool that you don't. hear about in Lord of the Rings at all.
Hmm.
Um, is it Silmarillion? I like the little tips of the cap, like where he's being held prisoner and they're sending the wolf to torment him or
Hmm.
whatever that the warg or whatever that thing is, and he
Yeah.
turns it against
Yes.
the people.
That was
It's
neat.
like,
That was well
yeah, he
done.
still
Yeah.
took his lumps, which I thought was cool because
Hmm.
he's immortal being. What does he care, really? He can
Right.
take some, but he still twisted it because he knows these creatures better than any of them ever will.
Hmm.
And the fact that it was a wolf, that's the kind of stuff that when they throw it in there, I go, oh, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
that's
a
a
nice
cool
touch.
reference to
Yeah.
Silmarillion. But the fact that they can't adapt the material I want to see
Hmm.
has already just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
most boring age to adapt.
Yeah.
It's like,
Lord of the Rings, the boring age.
yeah, the boring age, the boring age.
Yeah, the boring age. Everybody's got to roll their R's in the show too. I
Yeah.
don't get that, but yeah.
Yeah, I would rather see like how the men were corrupted
Hmm.
and the battle
Yeah, that would be
of
neat.
the
Yeah, that would be really
yeah,
cool to
the
see.
the leader of the Nazgul, the Witch King stuff of Angmar stuff.
Oh, I think that would be an
Because there's
amazing storyline.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
tons of stuff there you could do and create
Hmm.
characters and have good versus
Oh, I would
evil
love to
and the
see
Shadow of
that. Yeah.
Sauron in there. Um, you know, but whatever. And
Yeah.
and I will say one thing that's always going to doom this show is the Galadriel Sauron romance angle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Didn't need to go
stupid.
there.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And we all
Um,
know it's power she wants in this
right.
version of the character. It's not him.
No,
But
no.
for her motivation to be her brother, and this guy directly murdered her brother basically,
Hmm.
and then because he looked her in the eye and was sincere a couple of times, she now
Yeah.
like, don't leave me alone with him. Elrond promised me he will not allow me to look at his Tinder page or whatever. It's like, what in the world? That's one thing you got to realize in Tolkien.
Hmm.
There is no greater measurement of a character than their will.
Yeah.
That is how character is measured in Tolkien. Is yes, it's good and evil, but it is your will. That is your
Hmm.
will that makes you a strong or weak character. Sam, that's why Sam is the hero.
Hmm.
He's ultimately got an unbreakable will.
Will. Yep.
Galadriel has an unshakable, unbendable will that she knows how to direct like a force. She
Yeah.
uses all of her personality, charisma, her personal magic, whatever. Gandalf, every character that is important.
Hmm.
Um, it's about pitting their wills against each other. If you
Yeah.
have a strong will and a strong desire to do good and a strong desire to see good done, for everyone or whatever, you have to
Hmm.
use that will to oppose the will of evil, which is an active force bent on destruction, corruption. It is out there working constantly. Even if it's been annihilated, it's never annihilated. It's coming back, and you have to be vigilant. And you have to be ready, and so they're not conveying that
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
this. You've got characters just fighting over little ticky tack things every episode.
Yeah.
It's like anyway, but that would
Yeah.
make I guess, a more boring show. But why not try it?
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I always tired of the original Peter Jackson films too was how much melodrama they rung out of every moment
Hmm.
eventually as they went along. That's why Fellowship's my favorite one because
Yeah.
it's a slower pace and
Yeah.
before we have to have conflict in every single scene. But
Hmm. So,
anyway,
well, yeah, but that's pretty much our take, our wrap up on the first half of Rings of Power, and we'll be back, of course, in another 4 weeks to wrap up the season as a whole, and hopefully it continues to at least hold our interest, and
right.
and we don't know, maybe this will be the final scene, based if you believe the reports coming out online, the rumors that this may be all we get. So,
It's like,
um,
wow, I hope they don't cancel it without wrapping up the story of Galadriel and Sauron and Elrond
yeah.
and all the characters that lived for hundreds of years after the events of the show. The
Exactly.
suspense is killing me. How are they going to resolve it?
Oh, brother. Anyway, so yeah, tell us what you think down in the comments. Like, subscribe. Thanks for helping us out and supporting the channel and just watching along with us. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy. Sorry for defending the show.
Never. Ay, ay, ay.
It's
So,
weird. It's weird
mm,
when you like something that is just